Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights of County General Hospital hummed overhead as Christian Graves sat beside his son's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of the boy's chest. Leo was 8 years old, small for his age, with his mother's dark hair, but his father's steel-gray eyes. Those eyes had seen too much in the past 3 days. Christian had built his software company from nothing, a garage startup that became a $30 million enterprise specializing in maritime logistics and tracking systems. Ironic, considering what those systems had ultimately saved him from. He'd grown up in foster care, bounced between 6 homes before aging out at 18. Every dollar he'd earned, every line of code he'd written, every business decision he'd made had been driven by one singular purpose: to build something permanent. A family, a home, security. Then he'd met Nikki Dawson at a tech conference in Seattle 7 years ago. She'd been working the event, representing her family's struggling maritime insurance firm. Beautiful, charming, with a laugh that made him forget his usual caution around people. They'd married within a year. Leo came 10 months later. Christian should have seen the signs earlier. The way Nikki's parents, Gerard and Rita Dawson, looked at him across the dinner table, not with acceptance, but assessment. Like he was livestock they were considering purchasing. The way Nikki's brother, Kerry Dawson, would ask pointed questions about his business, about his life insurance policies, about what would happen to his assets if something happened to him. "Mr. Graves?" A nurse poked her head through the doorway. "There's a Detective Kern here to see you." Christian nodded and gently squeezed Leo's hand before stepping into the hallway. Clyde Kern was a weathered man in his 50s with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen humanity at its worst. They'd spent considerable time together over the past 72 hours. "How's the boy?" Kern asked. "Sleeping." The hypothermia wasn't as severe as they initially thought. Christian's voice was steady, but his jaw tightened. "The child psychologist says he'll need extensive therapy. He watched his grandfather shoot his father. He thought we were both going to die." "Kids are resilient," Kern offered, though they both knew it was hollow comfort. "You didn't come here to check on Leo's medical status." Kern pulled out a small notebook. "The DA wants to go over your statement again. They're building the case, but Gerard Dawson's lawyer is already floating self-defense theories, claiming you attacked him first, that he was protecting his family." Christian's laugh was bitter. "Self-defense? On his own yacht, where he invited us for a family bonding weekend." He touched his chest reflexively, feeling the bruises beneath his shirt where the bullets had struck. Did the vest fragments match the story? Forensics confirmed everything. 2 9mm rounds, fired from Gerard's registered Glock. The vest saved your life. Kern paused. "Most people don't wear bulletproof vests on family yacht trips. Most people don't have families like mine." 6 weeks earlier, Christian had sat in his downtown office, watching the city lights flicker to life as evening settled over the waterfront. His business partner and closest friend, Russell Singleton, sat across from him, nursing a whiskey. "You really think they'd try something?" Russell asked. He was a lawyer by training, though he'd partnered with Christian on the tech side 3 years ago. They'd met in college, 2 scholarship kids determined to prove they belonged in rooms full of trust fund legacies. Christian slid a folder across the desk. "Third life insurance inquiry in 2 months. Always from Nikki's email, but phrased like she's asking for me. Questions about maritime accidents, about how quickly policies pay out for ocean-related deaths." Russell flipped through the printed emails, his expression darkening. "This could be innocent. Maybe she's just worried about you." "Nikki's never worried about me." Christian opened his laptop, pulling up financial records. "Look at this. The Dawson Maritime Insurance is hemorrhaging money. They're 3 months from bankruptcy. Gerard took out loans using the business as collateral, but he's already defaulted twice." "How'd you get access to their financials?" "My maritime logistics software. Half the insurance companies on the West Coast use it, including Gerard's. I built in administrative backdoors for system maintenance." Christian's smile didn't reach his eyes. "The same backdoors I told them about when they signed the contract. They just forgot." Russell set down his glass. "And your life insurance?" $5 million. Double indemnity for accidental death. Triple if it happens during maritime activity." Christian pulled up another document. "Nikki is the primary beneficiary. In the event of my death, she also gets controlling interest in the company through the trust structure. She could sell it, walk away with another $25 million after taxes." $30 million, Russell whispered. "That's motive. That's my family, Christian corrected. My wife. My son's grandparents. And I need to know if I'm paranoid or if I'm in danger. Russell leaned back. What do you want to do? Christian was quiet for a long moment, staring at the dark waters of the harbor visible through his office window. Gerard invited us on his yacht. For days, just family. Leaving next Friday. He was insistent, said it's been too long since we've all spent quality time together. You can't be seriously considering going. I am. Because if I'm wrong, I destroy my marriage and my son's relationship with his family over nothing. Christian met Russell's eyes. And if I'm right, I need proof. Real proof. The kind that holds up in court. This is insane. Probably. Christian pulled out a specification sheet for maritime safety equipment. Which is why I need you to help me prepare. I'll need recording devices, waterproof and untraceable. I'll need a tactical vest that can stop handgun rounds, but won't show under a shirt. And I'll need a contingency plan for Leo. Russell stared at him. You're going to wire yourself up and wait for your own family to try to murder you. I'm going to protect my son, Christian corrected. If nothing happens, we have a nice family trip and I can relax. If something does happen, he trailed off, jaw set. If something does happen, I'll make sure they pay for it. Every single one of them. Over the following 2 weeks, Christian transformed himself into a walking surveillance system. Micro cameras embedded in his watch, his belt buckle, even the frames of his sunglasses. Audio recording devices sewn into the collar of every shirt he packed. The vest was custom-made, thin enough to conceal under a casual shirt, but rated for multiple impacts from 9mm rounds. He taught Leo emergency protocols disguised as games, how to hold his breath underwater, how to activate a distress beacon, how to stay calm in crisis. Why are we playing these games, Dad? Leo asked one evening, floating in their backyard pool with a small orange emergency beacon in his hand. Christian treaded water beside him. Because I want you to be prepared for anything, buddy. The ocean can be unpredictable. Is this about Grandpa Gerard's boat trip? It's about keeping you safe. Always. Christian pulled his son close. Promise me something, Leo. No matter what happens out there, you trust me. Even if things seem scary, you remember that I've got a plan. Can you do that? Leo nodded solemnly, and Christian hated himself a little for putting that weight on a child's shoulders. But he hated the alternative more. The night before they left, Nikki came into their bedroom while Christian was packing. She watched him fold clothes into a duffel bag, her expression unreadable. You seem tense about this trip, she said finally. Just work stress. The Matsuda contract is in final negotiations. You could cancel. Dad would understand. Christian paused, studying her in the mirror. 7 years of marriage, and he realized he didn't know this woman at all. I thought you wanted us to go. You said it was important for Leo to bond with your parents. It is. She sat on the bed, picking at the comforter. I worry about you sometimes. You work so hard. You never relax. I'll relax on the yacht. He zipped the bag. 4 days of ocean air, family time. It'll be good for us. Nikki stood, kissed his cheek. Her lips were cold. I love you, Christian. I love you too. He replied automatically, and wondered when those words had become a lie they both told. The second chapter began on a Friday morning, with Christian and Leo driving to the marina where Gerard's 60-foot yacht, the Dawson Legacy, sat gleaming in its slip. The name itself was pretentious. Gerard had purchased the vessel only 3 years ago with borrowed money, but he treated it like a family heirloom. Gerard and Rita Dawson waited on the deck, the picture of affluent leisure in their sailing whites. Gerard was 62, silver-haired and barrel-chested, with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Rita, 5 years younger, maintained her looks through expensive procedures and designer clothes that screamed old money, despite the Dawsons having earned their wealth only in Gerard's generation. There's my grandson, Gerard boomed, sweeping Leo up as they boarded. The boy squealed with delight, and Christian felt his stomach turn. This was the man who would shoot him 48 hours from now. He was certain of it. Nikki was already aboard, along with her brother Carrie. At 34, Carrie Dawson was a pale imitation of his father. He had the same commanding voice, but none of the substance. He'd failed at 3 business ventures, all funded by Gerard, and currently held a meaningless vice president title at Dawson Maritime Insurance, where he spent most of his time day trading and losing money. Christian, finally taking some time off from your empire. Carrie's smile was oily as he shook Christian's hand too hard, a dominance play that Christian had long since stopped acknowledging. Even emperors need vacations, Christian replied mildly, stepping past him to stow their bags. The yacht departed at 10 a.m. sharp, Gerard at the helm as they motored out of the harbor. Christian had studied the planned route. They'd cruise up the coast for 6 hours, anchor overnight in a secluded cove, then continue to a small island where Gerard had friends with a beach house. 3 days there, then the return journey. Plenty of time and privacy for an accident. Christian activated the recording devices as they cleared the harbor. Every conversation, every movement would be captured now. He kept his phone in his pocket, linked to a satellite uplink that streamed all data to Russell's encrypted server. Even if they destroyed his phone, the evidence would exist. The first day passed in tense normalcy. They fished, they ate lunch on the deck. Leo played with rope knots under Carrie's instruction. Christian watched Rita watching him, saw the calculation in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking. By evening, they'd anchored in a pristine cove, the mainland barely visible as a dark line on the horizon. Dinner was grilled swordfish and expensive wine. Gerard insisted everyone drink, even Leo getting a small glass diluted with water. Christian nursed his carefully, noticing that Nicky kept refilling his glass whenever he set it down. To family, Gerard toasted, raising his glass. They all echoed the sentiment. Christian met his wife's eyes across the table and saw nothing there. No love, no regret, just cold assessment. After Leo went to bed, exhausted from sun and swimming, the adults gathered in the yacht salon. The conversation turned to business, as it always did with Gerard. "Your company's doing well," Gerard said, swirling his scotch. "I saw the Forbes article. 30 million valuation, possibility of going public. We're considering our options," Christian replied neutrally. "Must be nice, building something from nothing like that." Rita's tone made it sound like an insult. "No family legacy to maintain, no expectations to meet. Just, whatever you want to do." "I had different challenges," Christian said carefully. "Growing up without a family meant I had to create my own path." "The orphan made good," Carrie muttered into his drink. "Very American dream." Christian felt Nicky's hand on his knee, a warning or a restraint. He couldn't tell anymore. "I've been thinking," Gerard continued, "about succession planning. What happens to your company if something happens to you? It's all arranged. Trusts, legal structures. Nicky and Leo are taken care of. But the business itself? Who runs it? My business partner, Russell Singleton, would take over operations. But Nicky would control voting rights." Christian watched Gerard's reaction carefully. She could sell if she wanted to. Walk away with the full value. Gerard nodded slowly. "Smart. Very smart. Always good to have a backup plan." He stood, stretching. "Well, I'm turning in. Tomorrow we'll reach the island. Should be a beautiful sail." The others dispersed gradually. Christian checked on Leo, finding the boy deeply asleep, exhausted from the day. He sat on the edge of the small bunk, stroking his son's hair. "I've got you, buddy," he whispered. "No matter what." He returned to the master cabin to find Nicky already in bed, apparently asleep. Christian lay down without changing, the vest still secure under his shirt. He didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Every creak of the yacht, every shift of the waves kept him alert. Around 3 a.m., he heard voices. Low, whispered, coming from the deck above. Moving silently, Christian positioned himself where he could hear without being seen. Too much risk during the day. Gerard's voice, tense. When then? That was Carrie. Tomorrow night. We'll be 3 hours from shore. I'll say he got drunk, stumbled overboard. She'll back up the story. A pause. Rita, you need to keep Leo distracted. He can't see anything. Christian's blood went cold. His hands clenched into fists. Rita's voice, clinical. And if he does? If the boy sees? The silence that followed was answer enough. He's 8 years old, Carrie protested weakly. We can't. We can and we will if necessary. Gerard cut him off. This family is drowning in debt. Christian's life insurance and the business sale will save us. That's all that matters. Nicky's okay with this? Carrie again, sounding sick. It was her idea, Gerard said simply. She's been planning this for months. Why do you think she pushed so hard for this trip? Christian felt the deck tilt beneath him, though the yacht sat stable in calm water. His wife. His Leo's mother. She'd planned his murder. He crept back to the cabin. Nikki was exactly where he'd left her, breathing deep and steady. He wondered if she was truly asleep or just pretending, waiting for tomorrow night when she'd become a widow. The next morning dawned clear and beautiful. They weighed anchor at 7, Gerard steering them toward open water. Christian went through the motions of normalcy: breakfast, conversation, playing cards with Leo. All the while, the recordings captured everything. All the while, he refined his plan. He'd considered simply confronting them, using the recordings to expose their plot. But that would leave him vulnerable, outnumbered on a yacht in the middle of the ocean. No, he needed to let them make their move, let them believe they'd succeeded. Only then could he spring his trap. Around 3 p.m., Christian activated the emergency beacon he'd hidden in his shorts pocket. It was disguised as a fitness tracker, but it transmitted a distress signal with GPS coordinates directly to the Coast Guard. He'd explained it to them weeks ago through Russell, claimed he was concerned about safety on the yacht trip. They'd been skeptical but agreed to monitor the signal. The beacon also sent a signal to a device he'd concealed on Leo, a watch that would activate if Christian's heart rate dropped to dangerous levels or if it detected him entering water. Leo didn't know its true purpose. He thought it was a cool waterproof watch from Dad. Dinner that evening was subdued. Gerard kept checking his watch. Rita was pale, barely touching her food. Carrie drank too much, too fast. Only Nikki seemed calm, almost serene, as she cleared the dishes. "Leo, why don't you help Grandma below deck?" she suggested. "We need to reorganize some storage." "I want to stay with Dad," Leo said, and Christian heard the fear in his voice. The boy sensed something wrong. "It's okay, buddy," Christian said, though his throat was tight. "Help Grandma. I'll be right here." Rita took Leo's hand, leading him toward the cabin stairs. Christian watched them go, every instinct screaming at him to grab his son and dive overboard right now. But he needed the proof. He needed their full confession, their complete attempt. Otherwise, they'd walk away, try again later, and he'd spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder. Gerard stood, pulling something from his waistband. The Glock 9mm looked massive in the fading light. "Christian," he said conversationally, "I want you to know this isn't personal. It's just business." Carrie moved to block the stairs. Nikki stepped beside her father, her face expressionless. "The ocean keeps secrets well," Gerard continued, advancing. "Accidents happen all the time. Tragic, really. Young father, successful businessman, everything to live for. Slips overboard during a sunset cruise. Body never recovered. His devoted wife, left to raise their son alone, inheriting everything." Christian backed toward the yacht's railing, his hands raised. "You don't have to do this. We can work something out. If you need money." "We need you dead," Nikki said flatly. "We needed you dead 6 months ago. This has taken too long already." Gerard aimed the gun at Christian's chest. The recordings captured it all: the weapon, the threats, the cold admission of premeditated murder. "What about Leo?" Christian asked, stalling. "He's your grandson. He'll be fine," Rita called from below deck, where she'd presumably locked Leo in a cabin. "Children are resilient. He'll forget you eventually. He'll forget watching his father die," Christian demanded. Gerard's expression flickered. "He won't watch. He's below deck. But what if he heard the shots? What if he saw? You'd kill him too, wouldn't you? Your own grandson." "If necessary," Gerard said, and pulled the trigger. The first bullet struck Christian in the chest, the impact like being hit with a sledgehammer. The vest caught it, distributing the force, but it still drove the air from his lungs. He staggered backward against the railing. Gerard fired again. The second round hit higher, near Christian's collarbone. The vest caught most of it, but the edge of the bullet tore skin. Christian felt blood, warm and wet, and used it to his advantage, collapsing against the railing with a cry. "Throw him over," Gerard commanded. Carrie and Nikki grabbed Christian's arms. He struggled convincingly, but not too much, letting them drag him to the edge. The ocean stretched dark and endless below. "Wait," Christian gasped. "Leo, let me say goodbye to my son." "No." Nikki's voice was ice. "Push him. No one will know." They shoved him hard. Christian caught a glimpse of his wife's face as he fell. No remorse, no hesitation, nothing but cold satisfaction. Then he hit the water. The ocean was shockingly cold. Christian sank deep, the vest's weight pulling him down, before his training kicked in. He didn't panic. Instead, He released the emergency flotation device concealed in his belt, felt it inflate, and arrest his descent. Above, he could hear the yacht's engine starting. They were leaving. Good. Christian surfaced carefully, keeping low in the water. The yacht was already 200 yards away, cutting through the waves at speed. They weren't even looking back. Why would they? Dead men don't need supervision. He checked his phone in its waterproof case. Still functioning, still transmitting. The Coast Guard beacon was active. And the secondary device, the one that should have activated when he hit the water, that should have triggered Leo's watch. His son would know the signal. Would understand what his father had taught him in those pool sessions. Would remember to stay calm, to wait, to trust the plan. Christian floated in the darkening ocean, watching the yacht disappear toward the horizon. Every second was an agony of not knowing if Leo was safe, if Rita had hurt him, if his 8-year-old son was terrified and alone. But Christian had planned for this. Every scenario, every contingency. For hours passed. The sun set completely, leaving Christian floating in darkness, sustained by the flotation device and sheer willpower. His chest ached where the bullets had struck. His shoulder bled slowly, not serious but concerning. Hypothermia was the real danger now. Then he heard it, the deep throb of powerful engines. Searchlights cut through the darkness. United States Coast Guard. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Remain calm. We have visual contact. The 45-foot response boat pulled alongside. Hands reached down, pulling Christian from the water. Emergency blankets, medical attention, rapid-fire questions. My son. Christian managed through chattering teeth. Did you get my son? We intercepted the yacht 40 minutes ago. The coxswain, a man named Omar Sharp, informed him. Found a boy locked in a storage cabin. He activated an emergency signal from a watch device. He's safe, Mr. Graves. Scared but safe. Christian's vision blurred with relief. Thank you. God, thank you. The yacht's been detained. We contacted Detective Clyde Kern as you instructed. He's waiting at the dock with multiple units. Sharp wrapped another blanket around Christian's shoulders. What the hell happened out there? My family tried to murder me and my son for $30 million, Christian said flatly. And I have 12 hours of recordings that prove it. The Coast Guard boat made impressive speed, but it still took 8 hours to reach the mainland dock. During that time, Christian received medical treatment, gave his statement, and reviewed the recordings on his recovered phone. Every word, every image was perfect. Gerard's confession, the shooting, the cold discussion of killing Leo if necessary. More importantly, the device he'd hidden on Leo had worked exactly as planned. When Christian hit the water, it sent a distress signal and began recording. Leo's muffled cries for help, Rita's harsh commands to shut up or you'll see your father again, Carrie's drunken rambling about how they had no choice. The boy had been locked in a storage cabin for over 12 hours, traumatized but alive. When the Coast Guard had intercepted the yacht, Leo's signal had led them directly to him. They told him you were dead, Sharp said quietly as they approached the dock. The boy kept saying his dad had a plan, that he needed to wait. Smart kid. He's my whole world, Christian replied. The dock was lit up like a crime scene, because it was. Detective Kern stood with a dozen officers, Coast Guard personnel, and enough official vehicles to constitute a small parade. And there, in the center of it all, the Dawson Legacy sat in its slip, looking far less impressive surrounded by law enforcement. Ready? Sharp asked. Christian stood on shaking legs, still wrapped in emergency blankets. More than ready. They docked. As Christian stepped onto solid ground, he saw the Dawson family being escorted off the yacht in handcuffs. Gerard, Rita, Carrie, all under arrest. And there, last off the boat, was Nikki. She saw him and went absolutely white. Her legs buckled. 2 officers caught her before she hit the ground. No, she whispered. No, you're dead. We killed you. I watched you sink. Christian walked toward her slowly, savoring every second of her shock and horror. Kern fell into step beside him. Mr. Graves, you should really get to the hospital. In a minute. Christian stopped in front of his wife. Hello, Nikki. Miss me? How? She gasped. How are you alive? Bulletproof vest. The same kind I told you I was considering for security purposes 6 months ago, remember? You said I was being paranoid. He smiled without humor. Turns out I wasn't paranoid enough. Gerard was shouting, struggling against his restraints. This is insane. We didn't do anything. He attacked us, self-defense. Christian pulled out his phone, still in its waterproof case. Detective Kern, would you like to hear what really happened? I have about 12 hours of crystal-clear audio and video documentation of my attempted murder, including the parts where they discussed killing my 8-year-old son if he witnessed it. Kern took the phone carefully. This is all admissible. Recorded on my own property. The yacht was in my name. Gift to the Dawsons 3 years ago. They just didn't know that. I have every legal right to record on my own vessel. Christian had checked and rechecked this with Russell. Plus, I had reasonable suspicion of a crime being planned, which I reported to your office 2 weeks ago through my attorney. You have my sworn statement on file. You planned this, Nikki breathed. You knew. You knew and you still came. You brought Leo. I brought Leo because leaving him with you monsters was never an option. Christian cut her off. And yes, I knew. I've known for 2 months. The emails, the insurance inquiries, the financial investigations. I knew exactly what you were planning. He leaned closer. The difference between me and you? I actually love our son. I would never put him in real danger. That device I gave him, the watch, it monitored his vital signs the entire time. If his heart rate had spiked into true panic, if he'd been physically harmed, it would have sent an emergency signal and I would have aborted everything. But it didn't, because despite being locked in a cabin and told his father was dead, Leo trusted me. He remembered what I taught him. You used your own child as bait, Rita spat. I protected my child from murderers, Christian corrected. And I made sure you'd all pay for what you tried to do. A paramedic approached. Mr. Graves, we really need to get you to County General. You've been shot. You're showing signs of hypothermia. Where's my son? Christian asked Kern. Already at the hospital. He's been asking for you. Christian nodded, letting the paramedics guide him toward an ambulance. As he passed Nikki, she grabbed at him with her cuffed hands. Please, she whispered. Please, Christian. I can explain. It wasn't my idea. They pressured me. I love you. He looked at her with eyes gone cold as the ocean that had almost been his grave. I heard you on the yacht, Nikki. It was her idea, Gerard said. You planned this for months. You pushed for this trip. You watched your father shoot me and told them to push me overboard. He pulled away from her grasp. I hope prison gives you plenty of time to think about what you've lost. County General's emergency room was chaos, but they rushed Christian through to a private treatment area. The bullet wounds weren't serious. The vest had done its job, but he had a fractured rib from the impact, lacerations, and moderate hypothermia. They started 4 fluids, dressed his wounds, ran scans. You're extraordinarily lucky, the ER doctor, a tired-looking woman named Dr. Shah, informed him. Another hour in the water, and we'd be talking permanent damage. Can I see my son? He's in pediatrics, 2 floors up. Once we stabilize you. Now, Christian said firmly. I need to see him now. Dr. Shah looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Against medical advice, but I understand. Let me get you a wheelchair. They took him up to pediatrics, where Leo sat in a bed surrounded by stuffed animals some kind nurse had provided. The boy's face was pale, eyes red from crying, but when he saw his father, his whole expression transformed. Dad, Christian was out of the wheelchair before anyone could stop him, crossing to the bed and pulling his son into his arms. Leo clung to him, sobbing, and Christian felt his own tears finally come. You did it, buddy, he whispered into Leo's hair. You trusted the plan. You stayed calm. You were so brave. They said you were dead, Leo hiccuped. Grandma said you fell and drowned, and I'd never see you again. Grandma lied. They all lied. Christian pulled back to look at his son's face. But it's over now. They can never hurt us again. Are you sure? I promise. And this time, Christian knew it was a promise he could keep. Russell Singleton arrived an hour later, carrying files and looking frazzled. Jesus Christ, Christian. When the Coast Guard called me, I thought. He stopped, composing himself. The recordings are perfect. The DA says it's the most well-documented attempted murder case they've ever seen. Gerard, Rita, Carrie, and Nikki, they're all being charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and child endangerment. Bail. Denied for all of them. Flight risk, danger to witnesses, you and Leo specifically. Judge wasn't sympathetic. Christian nodded, settling back in the bed they'd moved him to adjacent to Leo's room. What about the business? Safe. I've already filed the paperwork to remove Nikki from all accounts and decision-making. Your trust structures were solid. Russell hesitated. There's something else. The Dawson Maritime Insurance? Gerard took out a loan against it last month. Put the entire company up as collateral. If he'd gotten your life insurance money, he could have saved it. Now, Russell shrugged. Bankruptcy, probably within weeks. Good, Christian said coldly. Let it burn. The trial, 3 months later, was a media sensation. Tech CEO survives family murder plot dominated headlines. The courtroom was packed every day, spectators craning to see the Dawson family sitting at the defense table. Christian testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every detail. The suspicious emails, the financial investigations, his decision to wear a vest and record everything. The recordings were played in full. Gerard's cold planning, Nikki's casual agreement, the gunshots, the splash as they threw him overboard. The defense tried to paint Christian as a paranoid control freak who'd orchestrated an elaborate setup. Their theory fell apart under cross-examination. So your client, Mrs. Graves, maintained she loved her husband? The prosecutor asked Nikki's lawyer. Yes. Then why didn't she call the Coast Guard when he fell overboard? Why did she tell her son his father was dead before any search had been conducted? Why did she leave the area at full speed rather than looking for survivors? The lawyer had no good answer. Leo didn't have to testify. The recordings from his watch were damning enough. Rita's harsh commands, Carrie's drunken confessions, their complete indifference to the child's terror. The jury heard an 8-year-old boy crying for his father while his grandmother told him to shut up or he'd end up dead too. Deliberations took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Gerard Dawson got 30 years to life. Rita got 25 to life. Carrie, who'd cooperated somewhat and shown genuine remorse, got 15 years. And Nikki, whose plan it had been from the start, received 35 years to life. Christian sat in the courtroom as the verdicts were read, Leo beside him holding his hand. His son was in therapy twice a week and doing better, though he still had nightmares. They both did. As the Dawsons were led away, Nikki turned one last time. Christian met her eyes and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no lingering love. Just a cold absence where his heart had once held space for her. It's really over? Leo asked quietly. It's really over, Christian confirmed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Russell and courthouse security formed a protective barrier. Christian paused at the top of the steps, looking out at the crowd. Mr. Graves, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you plan to sue the Dawson family? What about your son? How is he coping? Christian raised a hand for silence, and surprisingly, got it. My son and I survived an attempt on our lives by people who were supposed to love us, he said clearly. We survived because I refused to be a victim, because I planned, because I fought back. To anyone else out there facing similar threats, trust your instincts. Protect yourself and your children. And never, ever assume that family means safety. He guided Leo through the crowd to their car, where Russell waited. Hell of a statement, Russell said. Hell of a 3 months, Christian replied. They drove to County General, where Christian had one final piece of business. In the children's wing, he'd funded a new trauma counseling center, named in honor of all the children who'd survived family violence. Leo had helped design the logo, a lighthouse in a storm. The dedication ceremony was small and private. Leo cut the ribbon with oversized scissors, grinning for the first time in weeks. This is good, Dad, he said. Helping other kids like us. That's the plan, buddy. Turn something terrible into something that matters. Christian watched his son, seeing the strength there despite everything. Leo would carry scars, but he'd also carry the knowledge that his father had protected him, that justice existed, that evil didn't always win. 3 years later, Christian stood in his office, watching the waterfront. The company had gone public, valuation hitting $70 million in the first week of trading. He'd donated half his shares to establish a foundation for children of violent families. Leo, now 11, was in the building's child care center doing homework. Therapy had helped. The nightmares had faded to occasional bad dreams. He was doing well in school, had friends, played soccer. He'd survived. They'd both survived. Russell knocked and entered without waiting. Got the final paperwork. Nikki's appealed 3 times, denied every time. She's officially never getting out. Christian nodded. He didn't think about Nikki often anymore. She was simply a chapter of his life that had closed violently, but permanently. You know what I realized? Christian said, still watching the harbor. I spent so much time building a family, creating that stability I never had growing up, that I missed the fact it was poisoned from the start. That wasn't your fault. No, but I learned from it. Christian turned to face his friend. Leo and we're building something better now. Something real. Built on trust and honesty instead of lies and greed. Any plans to date again? Maybe give Leo a stepmother who won't try to murder you. Christian laughed, genuinely amused. Not for a long while. I'm focusing on my son, the business, the foundation. Romance can wait until I'm confident my judgment of character has improved. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the city they'd conquered come alive in the twilight. You ever regret it? Russell asked quietly. Going on that yacht, risking everything? Christian considered the question seriously. No, because the alternative was spending the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, never knowing when they'd try again. This way, I took control. I set the trap, I gathered the evidence, and I made sure they could never hurt my son. He paused. Leo asked me once if I was scared, out there in the ocean, waiting for rescue. What did you tell him? The truth. I was terrified, but I was also certain that I'd planned well, that the recordings would hold up, that justice would prevail. And that certainty kept me alive when the fear should have drowned me. Russell clapped him on the shoulder. Hell of a thing, Christian. Hell of a thing. Christian smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. He'd survived attempted murder, exposed a conspiracy, protected his son, and ensured his enemies would spend their lives paying for their crimes. He'd done it without compromising his ethics, without stooping to their level of depravity. The orphan kid from foster care had built an empire, survived betrayal, and come out stronger. That was a story worth living. And as he headed down to collect Leo from childcare, Christian Graves knew that whatever challenges the future held, he and his son would face them together, wiser, stronger, and absolutely unbreakable. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.